Hi. Hello. How are you? It has been a hot minute since I have filmed, recorded, and uploaded a YouTube video. Now there is a reason for that, and I'll get into that in a separate video because it's kind of dramatic, kind of not. But anyways, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be telling you and doing a little bit of a story time about my very first paranormal experience. It's not very long, and it's not very dramatic, but it is something that's going to lead up to a whole new direction on my channel, and I'm very, very, very excited to get into it. Not trying to make this introduction long, but my entire life I've been really, really into paranormal activity and all of that kind of stuff. Nothing to where I've ever dabbled with any expensive equipment or anything like that, but I've just been really, really interested in the paranormal side of life, just life. I 110% believe in an afterlife. I believe in spirits. I somewhat believe in reincarnation. And I also believe in the story of creation. So I'm just kind of all over the board here with my beliefs. And I'm just really, really excited to take this new direction on my channel. So sit back, grab some popcorn, get comfy, and let's get into it. So we all know that, or it's common knowledge, that children are definitely more conscious and more open to spirits in general. They are able to communicate with them a lot better, and spirits are more apt to speak with them because they have more open minds. They're not tainted by the world. They don't have other people's ideas in their heads. Just they're easier to speak to. So my very first paranormal experience, I actually did not know was a paranormal experience. And that's something that people won't always admit. They won't always admit that they didn't know what was happening until they were a lot older. I was about maybe 13 or 14 when I realized that what I was experiencing from age 2 to 5 was actually a very, very vivid paranormal experience. So let's get into it. I was and still am haunted about this to this day. It's not very active or scary, but it's just bone chilling, at least in my opinion. So this pretty much started when I was about 2 years old, and I remember things from about age 2 and on as far as my life events go. Now this paranormal experience happened over the course of 3 years, and it happened frequently, but not every single night. So I just wanted to make a little blurb about that. And it kind of shaped the way, and this sounds really dumb, the way that I sleep to this day. So I will never sleep even when it's scorching hot. I'm talking, you are naked in the bed at this point, drenched in sweat. I will never, ever sleep with the covers off, including my feet. I will not sleep with the covers off. I'm 25 years old, and this has shaped the way that I sleep, so keep that in mind. When I was 2 is when I had my first experience. My entire life, I have always been the type to crash really hard when I sleep. I've always been a light sleeper, but when I fall asleep, I'm usually dog tired, tired. And so when I fall asleep, I go through the stages of sleep rather quickly. So, 2 years old, fall asleep. I wake up, fully awake. And when I was living with my parents, my closet doors in my parents' house are tri-doors, so they're 3, and they basically sit like this, where like the middle door is out and then the two are kind of resting behind it and they all kind of slide. They don't really make a whole lot of sense now that I'm like older and a homeowner, but that's how they were. And when I would wake up, which happened about once or twice a week, I would sit straight up in my bed and I would look around my room for a little bit, and I had a nightlight, and I would hear silence. I would hear nothing. And my dad is a chronic, and when I say chronic, I mean chronic snorer. To this day, he's a chronic snorer. And I wouldn't even hear his snoring. And I would just look around the room. It would be silent. And eventually, my eyes would gear towards the middle closet door. And every single time that this happened, I was greeted by a man with olive skin, a head dressing, in a diaper. I remember his face to this day. And this particular spirit actually did not speak to me. There was no verbal communication whatsoever. He would actually, I remember very vividly, he had very bushy eyebrows and he had snaggle teeth, which was fine, but that's just what he looked like. And he was an elderly-er man, I would say now probably within his late 50s, early 60s range. And yeah, so he had like a head dressing and he was wearing a diaper. And I didn't really think anything of it. I was 2, so I was like, oh, there's a man in my closet. Let me go say hi. So I would get up and I would go say hi to him. And in my experience, he would often tickle me. And I could literally, like under my arms, he would tickle me. And I didn't really like it. And I would always have to tell him to stop. I told him that I didn't think it was funny. And then he would just smile at me, but not in like a creepy way, in like a friendly way, I would say. And he would just laugh. And I know that sounds so creepy, but like it wasn't creepy to me at the time. Like I wasn't afraid of him whatsoever. Like I just thought he was the old man who lived in my closet. And I never told my parents about it until I was older, just because I didn't think that there was like anything wrong with him being there. And then I would go back to my bed after about 10-15 minutes of conversing. I would talk to him, by the way, but he wouldn't talk back to me. He would just smile, laugh. He would interact with me, but he wouldn't actually talk to me. And so I would go back to my bed and I would always fall asleep. This is where that first portion of the video comes into play. I would always fall asleep on top of my covers. After I talked to the man, I would always fall asleep on top of my covers, and I would fall asleep backwards. So my head would be where my feet normally are, and my feet would be where my head normally is. And I would just fall asleep. And every single time that happened, I would wake up in the middle of the night, and I don't know what time, because obviously I wasn't like watching time when I was 2, 3, 4, 5. But I would wake up in the middle of the night and there would be like black apparitions above my head. And those would scare the poop out of me. And when I say they would scare me, I mean I was frozen scared. And I would scream at the top of my lungs, fully awake, able to see these apparitions, and they wouldn't even go away. Like, I'd be screaming. I'm sure they knew that my parents were coming, and I would be able to see them. And they weren't talking to me. They weren't saying anything. They were literally just, like, flying over me. And I don't know why I was so terrified of them, but I was so scared. And like I said, this would happen 2-3 times a week. And my parents eventually quit coming when I would scream. And so I started associating my blanket with safety because whenever I was covered up, the apparitions would not come. And so to this day, as a 25-year-old woman, I will not sleep without my blanket completely covering me from, and I'm not crapping you, I'm not joking, collarbone down. Always. If I'm napping, the most you'll see that's not normally out of the blanket are my hands, and I sleep like, you know, that sleeping position like this? I'll sleep like this. That's about the extent of it. Now, when I got a little bit older, 13, 14 years old, I remembered this man, kind of like out of the blue, and I went to bed one night and I woke up fully conscious, not lucid dreaming, not dreaming, fully conscious. And I looked over at my closet and I saw eyes. And it scared me, obviously, because at this point I knew what spirits were, I knew what apparitions were, and that kind of stuff scared the poop out of me. So ever since then, I kept my closet doors shut. But it reminded me of the old man that I used to talk to in my closet. And that's when I kind of put two and two together, and I was like, hey, was that a ghost? Was that a spirit? Like, who was that? Is that the man that's in my closet now? Is that the pair of eyes that are in my closet now? And so I kind of decided for myself that I wasn't going to be afraid of it, but I wasn't going to keep the closet door open when I slept. And so I kind of did some research on the property, and the house that we lived in, we were the very first owners. So I was like, okay, there's nothing that happened here. Nobody died here. Like, we're the very first owners. It was bought in 1996. And I was adopted when I was 1. My parents got the house when I was adopted. And we lived there until I was 20. And my parents actually still live in that house. And I have obviously moved out. So I was like, there's no way that anything happened here because we're the first owners. Then when I got a little bit older, I was about 19 years old, I was doing some research on the area. And the area that I lived in, which was a certain part of Green Valley, which was in like Henderson area, Green Valley area, was previously occupied by not only Native American tribes way back when, but also they had set up tents there for the people that were working on building the city, building the dam, building that kind of stuff out here in Nevada. And so I kind of did my research, in the area that my house is located in was almost like, not my house was the center point, but like the area was the center point where a lot of people set up like temporary shelter. And obviously during that time period, there was a lot of disease, there was a lot of illnesses. There was also normal life where people just existed, but there was also a lot of deaths. And so I'm just going to assume, because I don't know who lived exactly on like the marker of where I was, that was probably somebody during that time period. It also kind of clicked in my head that the head dressing that the man was wearing was actually a bandage. When I would kind of regress back to my old memories, it was a bandage. It wasn't necessarily like a hat or a headscarf or anything like that. No blood, but it was a head bandage. And he was an older man wearing a diaper. I remember him pretty vividly to this day, and I still remain pretty conscious and open to the paranormal world. Sometimes I try to ignore it because it's a little bit scary, but I stay pretty open. I don't see apparitions or anything like that, but it's more so intuition and feeling, and like guiding, I should say. But that was my very first paranormal experience. I know that's not like super exciting, like plates weren't being thrown at walls or anything like that, but it's something that like shaped kind of like where I am today and like certain habits that I have today, based on that one paranormal experience. Because it wasn't one paranormal experience, but like that one experience that I had over a course of like 3 years. So, sorry if you hear my dogs. They bark at each other because they fight for space. Not that my dogs fight for space, but they have like a big room that they share at night. And when one of them wants the other one to scoot over, they bark at each other. So, anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. This was so fun to tell this story. I feel like this is basically where my channel is going to go. I have a ton of stories, ton of experiences, and I'd love to hear yours. I love listening to scary stories or like paranormal activity that you've experienced, and I cannot wait until I can tell you guys my next one. So please leave a comment down below, and I actually have set up an email for not only business inquiries, but for story inquiries. If you have a story that you want to tell that you're not comfortable telling yourself, but you'd like me to tell it, I'm so happy to do that. I'm so excited, you guys. This is exactly where I want to be. Just is. Anyway, I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you so much for watching.